The nonprofit Bay Area Council just released the results of another survey, this one about homelessness in the Bay Area, and it looks like a lot of voters are fed up. Joining us now is Bay Area Council CEO Jim Wanderman. Jim, thanks for being with us. Talk a little bit about these results.
Yeah, they're pretty one-sided, and it's very clear, as you said, that the Bay Area residents, 1,000 people throughout the 9 counties, take this poll, and 86% say homelessness has gotten worse in the last couple of years, not better, and 87% now say they support conservatorships to help people get off the street, people who are part of the chronic homeless population who face either mental health issues or chronic substance abuse problems. And 70% say it's time to take a get tough attitude and feel that people shouldn't be able to just stay out on the street and allowed to sort of do their thing, that it's time to get people into shelters and make sure that the streets and our parks and public places are returned for general public use.
It is interesting to see such one-sided results because politically, this just caused gridlock in City Hall and in Sacramento, people trying to figure out the best way to deal with this. It's just been a real sticking point for politicians that don't want to go too far in one direction or the other. Do you think these results will come as a surprise to them?
I don't think elected officials should be surprised, because this issue has risen to the top of the chart among people's concern over the last few years. We've seen this trend, and this is an issue I think the Bay Area has been dealing with for nearly 2 generations now, and it obviously isn't getting solved, and in many ways is getting worse and more visible, and more people are dying on the street. And last year, I believe just in San Francisco, more than twice the number of people who died from COVID-19 died from drug overdoses. So this is an untenable situation. It bears difficult decisions on the part of elected officials. They're not going to be popular for making the kinds of decisions that are necessary, but the public just isn't waiting around anymore. They're very frustrated. This is really at the top of the heap of issues that are frustrating them. And I think our elected officials need to take heed of this situation.
Now, you said this is not about villainizing the homeless population.
I think if you want to help people, you have to help them, with serious resources. And most of the people in this poll say that more resources need to be dedicated. So we don't take issue with that whatsoever. But you also need, the government needs to take control of the situation. You can't leave it down to the level of the individual who just decides, like, I think I'm better off on the street, so that's where I'm going to be. So in order to do that, you have to provide shelter. The law is pretty clear on that. You can't just kick people off the street with nowhere to go. So you've got to provide somewhere to go. So a lot of the resources have to go to that. And it has to be joined by very well-utilized wraparound services that address the needs of the individuals. Not everybody's the same. They're not all homeless for the same reason. Housing has to be a really big part of this. But for that portion of the population that's just kind of laid out over the sidewalks in many of our cities these days, suffering serious mental health issues and serious drug abuse issues, they're not going to get better. They're not going to be helped by this attitude that, we're just going to make it a little easier for you to be on the street. We're going to engage in, so-called harm reduction, and that's going to be the be-all, end-all of our solution. That's clearly not working, and it's time for everyone to kind of get take heed of that, and figure out a better way to resolve this issue. The public is demanding it.
So Governor Newsom has proposed these care courts where people with mental health problems and drug abuse issues would be compelled into a court and then compelled to get treatment. Is that something you're in support of?
Very, very constructive, Governor Newsom. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we need. We need the state in the mix, because it's very difficult for the local governments to just do this on their own. So we need state resources, and we need the impact of the state's authority to make sure that there's compliance at the local, county, and city levels to make sure that this happens. And so the cities throw up their hands in a lot of cases and say, well, we don't have the ability to do this. I think with this partnership between the state and the locals, and I would argue the federal government has a big role to play in this that they're not playing. We need to solve this as if, we need something on the order of a Marshall Plan to actually get this done. And all levels of government working together in the interest of the people who are unhoused and the people who are the general citizenry that's affected by this.
Well, there's no doubt the government has tried over the years, over the decades. Billions of dollars have been spent. Different plans come and go, different goals never met. What do you think, as far as the philosophy of solving this problem, has been just wrong in the past?
Well, I will tell you what I think is we've just been too tolerant of the situation. And we keep wanting to say that, first and foremost, we need to protect the rights of the individual who's on the street. And that has to be sort of the beginning and the end of the equation. And then we work around that. And that's just not worked. I understand the desire of people to be sympathetic. I think we are all sympathetic to the situation these people find themselves in. Anyone could find themselves in this situation. But if you really want to help someone, in some cases, you need to kind of take them by the hand and lead them down the proper path. For someone who is, strung out, addicted on fentanyl, that you're not going to help them by encouraging them to get off. They're going to need to be taken into, some kind of custody and taken to a place where they can be helped to get off and stay off. It's probably, what I understand to be a months-long process, and then help them back into life. Might not be able to save everybody, but certainly leaving them on the street, you're going to save pretty much nobody. You're subjecting them to pretty much a death sentence out there. And so for the people who have severe mental health issues, you can help a lot of people, but you can't just let them help themselves if they're just roving on the street, not getting medication and so forth. So I think what Governor Newsom is doing is the right thing. I think this poll shows it's upon us now to kind of take a different way of looking at this. And, let's help people in a serious way now that's different than before. We keep just doing the same thing we've been doing and pouring more and more money into the same things that are not working. I think we know what to expect.
All right, Jim Wunderman, CEO of the Bay Area Council, with the results of a new study. We appreciate you joining us today on CBS News Bay Area.
Thanks for having me aboard. Appreciate it.